All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me make sure I am unmuted. Perfect. Um, Welcome back to week 2. I'm glad you guys all came back. Um, Really excited for this class today because we're going to be talking about change, which is not an easy topic for some people to embrace. But before we jump into the material for the class, I just want to point out that I did upload your your course calendar in Canvas. Okay, and so here it kind of will give you what the activities or the assignments are going to be. This does not include any in-class activities, kind of like what we're going to be doing tonight, only because I just came up with it this morning as I was preparing for class today. In full transparency, like I said, it's been a while since I've taught this class face to face, and so I'm really trying to find ways to enhance the face to face aspect of it. And so in-class activities won't be necessarily on here. So always come prepared to do something in class, and that will be kind of counted as your activity or your assignment for the day. So the information is up here. There is, I did leave this on here, the Sala bed making event volunteer. So if you'll notice, I posted today in Canvas in the announcements, the different fall volunteer opportunities. So that includes the Sala hidden gems. That includes typically, sorry, oh my gosh, I can't talk right now. Typically, the bed making competition is only for the students that are on Thursdays, but if you are free during the day and you want to come and hang out with us, you're more than welcome to. I'll post the information on Canvas. You can sign up for that as well. The reason why it's important for you to sign up is because I do provide pizza at lunch, and I want to make sure that I have enough food for everybody. I don't want to run out. So if you are going to come and it's not part of your normal Thursday class, please make sure you sign up for that. All right. Any questions about our calendar? Yes, sir. This is going to be in the modules. So if we look in the modules, it's going to be in the orientation module, the very last one. Good question. All right. Any other questions about the calendar? No? All right. Okay, so the only thing I did not put on there that I'm just realizing now, I need to make a note for myself, is the November 4th, that Tuesday, November 4th. Remember, that is the ILEA, International Live Event Association. It's going to happen during our class time. So even though I'm out of town at a conference, I highly encourage you to come to that event. They're going to teach about networking, professional networking, and then also they're going to offer you an opportunity to take your professional headshot by a photographer. So you can add that to your LinkedIn profile picture. You can add it. Don't really add it to your resume. People don't really add pictures to resumes. You'll see that in some places, but a lot of the recruiters that I've follow on Facebook don't really think that pictures are worth it. And then also sometimes the online AI that filters through resumes doesn't even recognize the picture. So it just kind of takes away that. So I will also create a sign up sheet for the 11-4 ILEA events, just so we can know how many people are attending that. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, they'll get your picture one and they'll be able to open your phone just because of your face. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so, okay, I did that. The other thing that I did when I was posting today, I realized I didn't have my Canvas set up to where it provides the 3 most recent announcements. I usually have that in all my classes. So that way you don't actually have to click the announcement link. It just is automatically here. So at the top of the homepage, it will post the 3 most recent announcements. So that's where you're going to see that fall volunteer event sign up. Okay. Remember, Hidden Gems is a 21 and up only. And then I think we are close to a date for the street taco cook-off. The dates they provided are Saturdays and Sundays. So it is a weekend thing. It's not going to be during the week like it was last time. So I'll keep you posted. And I think it was this class that suggested that I post when I'm going to open the form, so everybody knows when to sign up, because it is only limited to 4 teams. You need to make sure you have your whole team of 3 ready to go when you register. Okay. Let's jump into chapter 1. So, chapter 1, what are we talking about? Talk about change. Good. We can read. Excellent. By a show of hands, who did not watch the chapter 1 videos? Okay, cool. So in today, we're going to go through this information relatively quickly. And so it's really important you watch those videos before you come to class, because I want to get to the activity as quickly as possible. Okay. So we are going to go through each one of these slides. Some of it might look a little familiar, but my goal is to more of it be like a review and less of a lecture. Okay. So how would you fill in the blank? A being 1, 2, B being 2, and C being 3. Show me with your fingers 1, 2, and 3. How would you fill in this blank? I see some embraces. Good. I see some tolerate. I don't see any avoid. That's good. Okay. So I personally would be a 2, a 3, or a 1, depending on the situation. Okay. It really kind of depends on the situation and kind of what that change is eventually how I'm going to, whether I'm going to accept that or not. And I'll be honest, sometimes I'll avoid change, right? Because I just love it. I love being comfortable. I love knowing what I'm going to be doing. The one thing I don't like is when things change, when I already have a vision of what it's going to be, and I've already done some work towards that, and then it's like, oh, by the way, we're going to change it to this. I get really frustrated with that because I feel like that's wasted time. Okay, so we're going to go through each one of these external forces. What does it mean by external forces? Outside, good, right? So it's things that are happening outside of our organization. We don't have any control over it. Okay. Versus what's the opposite of external? Internal. So internal changes is things that we're making maybe within our area, within our own company, whether that's like a process, we're going to be redefining something. We're making that change internally so we can kind of control the things, right? When it comes to external, we have no control of them. So we kind of just have to react. All right. What movie is this? Devil Wears Prada. Excellent. I'm glad. I wonder when I'm going to get to a class that nobody knows what this movie is. But this is one of my favorite lines of the entire movie. Moving at a glacial pace. That's one of the things that frustrates me the most. Remember, I'm an orange. I like to move quickly. I like to get things done. And so when people are taking their time or people aren't moving at the speed that I would like to move at when it comes to change, it can be really frustrating. But technology is exponentially changing. It is changing at an exponential rate. What kind of technology do we use in hospitality? A point of sale system, exactly. Okay, remember, what did we do before point of sale systems? Handwritten tickets, right? And there's still some companies that are still doing handwritten tickets. But if we can move into that technology, some of the barriers to that is it's really expensive. And then we also have to train our staff how to actually use that system. What about in hotels? What kind of technology do we use in hotels? Our reservations and using the apps, and how does that reservation communicate to the inventory we have available, okay, in our hotels? Good. The keys to the doors, absolutely. That's a huge technology. What's the latest in technology with hotel room keys? I'm going to use my phone. And bracelets, yeah, absolutely. Especially I've seen that at resorts where they give you some kind of a bracelet that designates that you belong there, right? So they can see if you don't have a bracelet, then obviously you're not a guest of the hotel. And those bracelets are used as your room keys, absolutely. Okay, nice. That's so that connects not only to our reservation and our inventory system, but it also connects to our point of sales. So we can just, and that way you don't necessarily have to fill out the ticket that says the room number and your name. All that information is already stored right here. That's really cool. I've not seen that. Yes, sir. Okay, cool. Excellent. We also use technology in housekeeping. It used to be when I was a housekeeper, I would clean my room and then I don't know when the supervisor was going to go check it in or check out the room, make sure I got it done. And then the supervisor would have to go to the front desk and manually change the status from the room to check out and dirty to clean and ready, vacant and ready. Now all of it's done by a little tablet. And so we can even, if you're a housekeeping manager, and let's say a VIP guest comes in, and I can see that Leah is in room 804, but I need her to, and she got to do 806. The guest for 806 has just arrived, and that's like three rooms down on her list. Without even contacting Leah, I just get into the system and I'm going to move 806 up next. And then that way, Leah, when she pulls up her tablet, she knows she has to go do 806 next. And then as soon as she's done, the supervisor is alerted. The supervisor checks it. And then the supervisor changes it in the system, and that front desk agent can check that guest in. Right. So that efficiency, that technology has really helped with the efficiency of a lot of different places. Our market, okay, the market changes. Um, what is one of the biggest hot topics in the tourism in the downtown area in San Antonio right now? Not quite the Pearl. So the Pearl is hot, right? It brings a lot of guests and it brings a lot of locals too. So yes, that is a hot area. But think about I'm thinking more of like a controversial topic. Project Marvel. Who has not heard of Project Marvel? Okay. Who has heard of the Spurs Arena they want to build downtown? Okay. So that's the same thing. This Project Marvel, that's the Spurs Arena is part of that project. Okay. But now Marvel has such a negative connotation. Now it's just called the Sports and Entertainment District. Okay. And so part of that Sports and Entertainment District, yes, is a new stadium where the Institute of Texan Cultures is. Okay. A redevelopment of the federal courthouse, which is that big round building that's just basically sitting vacant. They're going to turn that into a concert venue so we can have maybe smaller shows. Another part of that is expansion of the convention center and building a land bridge that goes from Hemisphere Park over 37 over to the Alamo Dome. And so that way it's a lot more accessible to get to the Alamo Dome. How many of you have ever been to a concert or an event at the Alamo Dome and you're walking down Cesar Chavez, you across the street under the bridge and try to get over to the Alamo Dome? It's really hectic, right? And so if we had a land bridge that kind of connected that and alleviated that foot traffic, then maybe the vehicular traffic could go much smoother. So there's a lot of different components to this, okay? But think about what San Antonio downtown looks like now compared to what it could look like in 5, 10, 15 years if this project goes through. How many of you been to Houston before? Downtown Houston, we have what formerly Minute Maid Park. We have where the Houston Rockets play, the convention center. They have all that kind of compact right there in the downtown area. So it's kind of a similar model that San Antonio wants to try to recreate because it's a very successful. People come down, they go out to eat. Maybe they're going to stay at a hotel. They're within walking distance of the game or the concert or whatever. It's interesting because I went to SeaWorld yesterday. It was the end of their red, white, and barbecue food festival. and great food. I love it. But my friend and I that we were talking about, she remembered when SeaWorld was coming to San Antonio. I think it was 1986 or 85 is when SeaWorld came to San Antonio. Okay. Can you imagine that conversation? That proposal to city council? Hey, we want to bring SeaWorld to San Antonio. I wonder what kind of controversy there was back then. Like, why would you bring SeaWorld? There's nowhere near the ocean. San Diego is on the ocean. Orlando is near the ocean. Why would you bring SeaWorld to San Antonio? But now think about 30 years later, what the economic impact has been for people coming to San Antonio, staying at the hotels. And that whole area over there has really kind of just developed as far as hotels and tourism. And SeaWorld was a central part of that. So I kind of keep that in my mind when I think about Project Marvel and the sports and entertainment district. So think about how the market could change. And I have no control over that. If this new stadium gets built, what's that going to do to restaurants being built down there? What's that going to be doing to hotels? And I might have to react in some way to make sure that I'm keeping up with the market. Our competitors, they also can change. So this link right here, I'll post it in Canvas if you want to take a look at it. It is outdated. It's from 2013 because that's when I taught this class live for the first time or the last time. But 2013, this link right here basically shows how 50 different cities throughout the nation are spending more and more money on tourism, where Rhode Island spends about $900,000 a year to promote tourism. Now, this is 2013. Hawaii spent something like $31 million a year to promote tourism, right? And so the piece of the pie, when we think about the money that our visitors have to spend on tourism and vacation and travel, that piece of the pie, that pie is only so big. And we want to try to get as big a piece of that pie as possible. Okay. Same thing happens in San Antonio. In San Antonio, we have the top two tourist destinations in the state of Texas, which are the Alamo and the Riverwalk. Okay. San Antonio has been really comfortable with those top two spots. And in the meantime, you've got Dallas has built, I don't know how many theme parks. They just opened Peppa Pig theme park up there, right? Jason, I'm glad you're paying attention. The look on your face was like, wait, did he just say Peppa Pig? Yes, absolutely. Right. And so it's I think Dallas, that whole area is trying to become like the theme park capital of Texas. Well, we've got Six Flags, we have SeaWorld, Morgan's Wonderland, right? We have Schlitterbahn not too far from us. It's like, why you're trying to take that? We've always kind of had that comfortability of like, hey, this is the way it is. So Houston, I had a friend of mine who was like, oh, I've been seeing a lot of commercials for Houston. Houston looks really cool. I'm like, yeah, because Houston's spending a lot of money trying to attract visitors to come there. And so San Antonio has been really fortunate, but we've got to also change a little bit in how we get our market out there. And the workforce. In what ways is our workforce diverse? Okay, so different backgrounds, good.
Aside from like military, there's like a lot of plans like going on.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, but that's okay because those are jobs in our industry, in our San Antonio industry, the workforce in general. Yep. So different backgrounds. What else? Age is a big one. We have more generations in the workforce than there ever has been at any given time. Okay, because you think about it, you've got boomers that still haven't retired yet. Okay. And hey, why not? Why not work? If you're able to and it fulfills you, go for it. No one's gonna kick you out, right? Or they shouldn't, as long as you're being productive. Okay, so we've got boomers, we have Gen X, Gen Y, the millennials, or is that Gen Y? I don't know. Gen Z, is Alpha after Gen Z? Alpha. I think Gen Alpha is the new one. And I think there's a Gen, is there a Gen Beta yet? I think Beta is born. Yeah, it's pretty close. Okay. And it's interesting because the generations used to be relatively large, like far apart, but because of technology, those generations are becoming closer and closer, like as far as what they consider a new generation. Technology plays a major, a partial role in that. So as leaders, we have to understand how do we deal with or how do we work with effectively a variety of generations. What are boomers and Gen X's want is not what the millennials and the Gen Z's want. And so it's really important for us to understand what that how we get that diversity of that workforce together. We also have education level, we have experience. Okay, so diversity comes in a lot of different ways. Um, Obviously, we like the top of the list. We have gender, um, racial backgrounds, ethnicity, religious, absolutely. Okay, so how do we bring all them together to work efficiently? And again, we have no control over it. We just kind of have to embrace it and move forward. So when it comes to two different types of changes, our internal are going to be reinvention and reengineering. Okay, reinvention is that most extreme. Who can give me an example of a very recent reinvention that has not gone very well? The Cracker Barrel. Oh my gosh. People are up in arms about a freaking logo. Oh my goodness. Right? Who is not familiar with the Cracker Barrel scandal? You can raise your hand, be proud. Excellent. Okay, cool. So, who wants to explain the Cracker Barrel scandal? Go ahead, Leah.
So, a bunch of the CEO was like, okay, let's change the logo of Cracker Barrel and make it more modern, and it takes away the old man sitting there with the barrel and the rocking chair. And so a bunch of people got really mad about that and said, well, that's not Cracker Barrel, that's not Cracker Barrel. And so
Yeah.
then they're calling the Cracker Barrel lady woke and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I don't think I ever noticed there was an old man sitting in a rocking chair next to a barrel with Cracker Barrel logo. I mean, I guess maybe subconsciously I saw it there, but I never really like focused in on that aspect of it. Um, yes, Andrew.
I saw someone making they thought it was fake. Like, yes, they did change the logo, but without script, they switched it back. It was a purposeful marketing decision.
Okay.
And like, logo, like, remember why
Yeah.
they switched super quick, like less than a week.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Never planned on fully making it. They switched back out of the way. Like,
Yeah. I would almost 100% agree with you on that, except that they did change the interior of their restaurants to be more modern, like country chic. But also, I think when I went to Austin this weekend, I think I saw like the new Cracker Barrel logo like on an illuminated sign somewhere on I-35. Um, but that's y'all remember when IHOP wanted to become the International House of Burgers, and they changed their name to IHOB instead of IHOP? Again, it's like, who are these people making these decisions, right? Okay, so also I will say one more thing about reinvention. When I was at TGI Fridays, okay, I was at the TGI Fridays at the Forum Shopping Center. They opened in like 2000, early 2000s. Okay, now prior to IHOP, or sorry, prior to TGI Fridays and prior to 2000, um, they were really known for being like a quirky restaurant. They had all this random stuff on the walls. Every TGI Fridays had a kayak or a canoe that was attached to the wall. Um, they had red and white pinstriped tables. Have y'all ever seen the movie Office Space? Jennifer Aniston, she had all of her flair, or she's supposed to have all of her flair, right? We wore suspenders. Well, not me because we didn't do that, but they wore suspenders that had pins that they could win, like competitions. Like you sold the most number of appetizers, so you get this pin. That's your piece of flair. How many pieces of flair are you going to have? That makes you like a really fun server, right? When I opened my TGI Fridays, they went to dark wood tables. We only red and white stripe we had. We went to black polo shirts with red and white stripes around the sleeves and the collars. We were allowed 2 pieces of flair, 1 pin on each lapel. Okay. They took down most of the memorabilia from like mine was a brand new build, so they didn't even put it up to begin with. But they did a complete reinvention. They even took their logo, TGI Fridays, and called it just Fridays. Well, not just, but Fridays. Okay. I can't tell you how many people walked in like, is this TGI Fridays? Yes, it is. Literally, like, what other restaurant has Fridays in the name of it? You know, of course, I would never say that to my guests, but go ahead, Alex. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. When you change the menu that drastically, absolutely. So that reinvention, sometimes they don't work. Okay. And so we're going to talk about a couple of times that it didn't work. Let's skip that one. Okay. The last thing we're going to run through really quickly is the PDCA cycle, the plan, do, check, act. Okay. This is basically a continuous improvement model that we can utilize to plan, implement the change, check to make sure we're on track, and then how are we going to act? How are we going to respond to what the current status is? Okay. So the planning. First of all, we want to do a SWOT analysis. Who has not heard of a SWOT analysis? Who has not heard of a SWOT analysis? Okay, awesome. Those of you who do not have your hands up, who would like to share what a SWOT analysis, what one of the letters stands for? Because it's all capitalized. That means it's an acronym for something. Strength is for S's. Okay, what's the opposite of strengths? Weakness. And then the O and the T are opportunities and threats. Okay, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is analysis that we can do so we can identify what is our strengths and what are our weaknesses. How can we still improve? The opportunities are what opportunities do we have to grow? And what are the threats that are holding us back? Okay. Definitely want to look when it comes to planning if there isn't any kind of financial performance involved with identifying that and how we can make that better. And then we want to look at that vision statement. If we don't have one, we want to create one. If we do have one, we also want to make sure that we're actually living up to that. Okay. So, what is our organization going to look like once we actually have implemented our change? Okay. As we're assessing the current status, we're going to do a gap analysis. Okay. What is a gap analysis? Now, that's all 3 capitalized, but it's just gap. It's just the word gap.
Oh, that is where you want to be, where you are, like, financially, and what you need to do to close that gap.
Exactly. So this is where we are. That's our baseline. That's where we start. This is where we want to be. So we're going to analyze that gap in between. Okay. So if we start on day 1, this is our gap. Now, at the end of the month or at the end of the year or end of the period, maybe our gap is a little bit smaller. If we haven't achieved our goal, our gap isn't closed, but it's a lot smaller. So now we can implement, let's evaluate what we did before, and let's figure out what we can do now to close that gap. Hopefully, fingers crossed, our gap is not bigger, meaning that we went down from our baseline. Okay. When we develop a plan for the change, it is a management function. but is only management ever involved in plans for change? What do you think? Thumbs up. Yes, only management should be involved with developing a plan for change, or no, management should not be the only ones involved when you're developing change. Or thumb sideways for I'm not quite sure. I'll always give you that option. Okay. The answer is no. Management should not be the only ones that are involved with change. Why? Who can think of a reason why? I saw some thumbs down over here. Go ahead. Yeah. Those associates, those team members, they're the ones that maybe are the ones that are going to be the most affected by the change. And so now why not get their input? I'm like, hey, this process right here, we could change this. But rather than saying, okay, we're going to change it, we're going to do it this way, if you have somebody who's part of the process, who actually does the process, their perspective, because they do it every single day, the more you get further away from that level from a management, you forget it's kind of sad, right? Managers kind of forget what it was like to be in this position at one point, and the further away they get away from that. And so it's always good to involve those people. Now, ultimately, the managers are the ones who make the decisions. Okay, so we can get input, but ultimately, the managers are going to make that decision. Okay, in the do, the plan, the do. Okay, now we want to communicate what that vision is going to be up front because there's going to be resistance. Chances are people are going to resist the change. Okay. And so it's really important for us to communicate what that vision is going to look like. And then we also want to get the right people involved. Okay. Our explorers, they're kind of like our champions. Okay. Conservatives in the middle, they're the ones, if you voted number 3, that you tolerate change, you're probably more in that conservative level as when it comes to change. And then the inhibitors, they do not want change. They're the ones who reject change. Okay. When you're implementing change, which group should you start with to try to get them involved with implementing the change? Should we involve our explorers first, our conservatives first, or our inhibitors first? What do you think? 1, 2, or 3? 1 for explorers, 2 for conservatives, and 3 for inhibitors. Who do you think we should involve first? I see mostly 1s, some 3s. I think I see a couple 2s. Excellent. Okay, so why the 3s? Okay, cool. And Juan, what do you think? Okay. All right. So I think those are both great examples. I think what you might want to consider doing is involve them in the planning process. We might have some inhibitors because they're the ones that be like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Now, as long as they can tell me why it's not going to work and not just because I don't want to change, right? Sometimes they can be those people that bring that to your attention you never thought about. Do we really need to change our logo? I don't think we do, right? So, anyways, so sometimes it's good to start with those explorers because they're going to champion it, right? They're going to be like, yes, I'm all in. I want to make this change, and this is why it's going to be good. And then we're going to celebrate those successes, those little milestones, okay? When you get those little milestones done, you celebrate. You don't wait to the very end to celebrate that you've accomplished your goal. Maybe at the very end, you have a big party. But along the way, when you celebrate, you want to give yourself a little bit of reward, give your team a little reward. Then the inhibitors can kind of see, okay, this maybe this isn't such a bad thing after all. Maybe I should get on board with this. Or like Juan, they got to find a new job. Okay. The check. This is a bad slide. I apologize. I need to make all that bold. The check. We want to assess the plan. Did we start off with a good plan? Or did we reach our goal or did we not reach our goal? What does our gap say? And then, are we on track to be a failure? Are we on track to be a plateau, meaning that we've kind of reached our goal and we kind of like leveled off a little bit? We haven't quite got to where we want to be. We just kind of leveled off. And then now, how do we reevaluate to close that gap? Okay. And then the last thing is the ACT, the continuous improvement. So we don't change just for the sake of changing. Okay. We should only change if it's going to improve our situation. We should not change just because, hey, the textbook says we should always be improving. Well, at some point, yeah, we're going to have to maybe improve to get along, right? But for right now, if what we're doing is working, why change it? So your homework assignment that's due next week is going to be a change reflection. Okay, this is just a reflection on the time that you experienced change on the job. Okay, if you don't have a lot of work experience, that's fine. Think about maybe a time when you experienced change. It could be at your church. It could be if you were a student organization member in high school. It could be really kind of anything when you went through a process of change. And you're going to basically look at that PDCA cycle. What role did you take? Were you a conservative? Were you a inhibitor, or were you a champion? Okay. So what was your role? Were you the target? Did your position have to change? Or were you asked to be somebody to advocate and be that change agent for the change? Okay. When I am grading this assignment, I am not grading the content as far as what the change is. Okay. Change can be anything. What I'm looking at is how well you can analyze and reflect on a previous experience and how the PDCA cycle. You may not even realize you were doing PDCA back then. Okay. But think about how that process went and how you would plug that into the PDCA cycle. Okay. So, any questions about the change reflection assignment? Okay, excellent. We have an assignment. Yes, sir.
This isn't about the assignment, it's actually about the my parents episode you had us watch.
Okay.
I saw something a while back about the percentage of kitchen nightmare restaurants that actually worked out after it was done, and an overwhelming percent went back on the chain and didn't actually follow through and ended up failing.
Interesting. Okay.
I saw some of the like 50 something restaurants that this person like less than 20, like 16 or something, survived more than a year after that initial thing.
Yeah.
So it shows how important it's actually follow all the changes being made and not just, oh, like you see one bad sign, it's not working.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as you experience a little bit of resistance, sometimes it's easy to just kind of go back to where you're comfortable. And the reason why they're on that episode, that show to begin with, is because what they were doing, what they were comfortable about, wasn't working. So thank you for sharing about that, Andrew. All right, so we are going to, I'm going to have you get into your own groups. Okay. I think we have 26 people. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. 10 on this side. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. We have 27. Okay. So there are going to be, I want you to get into 5 groups. Okay. Let's get into 6 groups. Okay. So 6 groups is going to be 4 or 5 in a group. Okay. So I'm gonna let you choose your own groups. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead and sit with your groups, and then I'll move on from there. Go. Get up and move around. If you need to sit up, get close to your groups. Either 4 or 5. In week 2 module, I'm going to hand out some copies. But in week 2 module, you're going to see there's the hospitality industry failure analysis in class chapter 1 activity, that document. Okay. The document's going to have all 4 case studies on there. But I'm going to pass these out to each group, 2 pages per group. And then anybody else who wants to follow along, you can just log into Canvas and read it digitally. Okay. So there are 4 case studies. Has anybody never done a case study? Who is not familiar with how we do? Okay, cool. Excellent. So how you're going to do a case study is you are going to read from the top to the very end. Read everything all the way through. Okay. You're going to basically given some information about a specific case of something that actually happened in the hospitality industry. Okay. We have an airline, we have a hotel, we have a restaurant, we have a cruise ship. There's 4 different cases. Okay. So we're going to hear about 2 cases 2 times, and that's okay. We'll have different perspectives. But what you're going to do is you're going to go through the case study. Okay. And then you're going to implement the PDCA cycle. You're going to take on the role as if you are a consulting firm, you're a consulting organization, and you're going to give this company, which is basically going to be us, okay, as an audience, you're going to be giving us some recommendations about how they can correct the issue that happened. And then use to implement some kind of change so that that change, that incident doesn't happen again in the future. Okay, so now different from my morning class, they do things on Tuesday and Thursday. We're actually going to present tonight. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 45 minutes to 45 minutes or so to work on your presentation. Okay, so part of it you need to read through. Maybe one person that has a computer can start making notes as you guys are talking. In week 2 module, I put a template right here for you. Okay. So you don't have to use this PowerPoint template, but you can if you would like to. So let me run through it real quick so you can see. Okay. On this, you want to, whatever the title is of your case study, that's what you're going to put right there in the parentheses, and then put all of your group members' names. Okay. That should be plural, group names. Then you want to identify what the facts are of the case. I want you to use bullet statements. So you don't say something like the company did this. You just say this happened. Okay. Because obviously you're talking about the company. So when you're doing bullet statements, they should be very succinct, and they should not be where you're reading everything off the slide. It's just there for you to remember of what you want to say as you're talking. Okay. So the facts of the case. Then we have a proposed plan. I want you to come up with a vision statement of what that company will look like after the change has been implemented. Okay. And then I want you to describe the planning process. Oops, my slides are out of order. I apologize. Let me change that real quick. So your proposed change is going to be your vision statement, and then you're going to say, what kind of change is this? Is this a reinvention where you're changing the total company, like the logo and everything? Or are we just doing a re-engineering where we're just focusing on just a process to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Okay. Re-engineering is a small incremental change. And then I'll update this in Canvas so you can have one. Then here I want to see what your proposed plan is going to be. So this might be like a timeline. In 6 months, we're going to do this. In another year, 6 months, within a year, we're going to evaluate this. Okay. So what are we going to do along the way? What does that timeline look like? Then the implementation. Okay, so what does our timeline look like? Again, you could use bullet statements. And then when you're checking, obviously we can't check it, right? We're just proposing what this company could do. And so I want you to think of what kind of metric or what kind of analysis you can do to check to see if we're on track. Is that customer service surveys? Is it the number of errors that we make have been decreased? What is that metric so we can know whether we're on success or whether we're headed towards failure? Okay. And then the act. Describe how this continuous improvement can be implemented so that this mistake doesn't happen again in the future. Okay. What I would recommend, and I'll give you, I'm not going to give you bonus points, but I highly encourage you to do this. If you're not familiar with using Smart Art, on the Insert tab in PowerPoint, the Smart Art link right here, you can choose anything like this. And then this little arrow on the corner will open up a list, and you can put in your bullet statement list. And it automatically creates this graphic for you. So you don't have to spend time doing shapes and insert text and things like that. You can choose from a variety of different Smart Art shapes. Okay. So I encourage you, you can keep it plain black and white if you want to, that's fine. If you want to implement some kind of graphics, that's totally fine too. Because we're on a short time frame, I'm not going to add or take away points from like the creativity of your PowerPoint. But if you want to make it look visually appealing, that'd be great too. Think about this. Your background and your text should be contrasting colors. Meaning I don't want to put white text on a yellow background. I won't be able to see that. Okay. And then also 22-point font is the smallest font you should have. Okay. In order for people to be able to see it. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pass out the case studies, let you start reading them and go over them. And then while you're doing that, I'm going to make these changes to the PowerPoint and I'll re-upload it to Canvas so you have the current copy of it.